The president has floated the idea of addressing this situation through executive order because it's a little bit of a sticky wicket situation. If all of these 14,000 migrants get to our border and they all claim asylum, we do have a system in place where people can claim asylum if they come to our ports of entry. So the president, I know, floated the idea of executive action that would limit asylum in some way. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, what I can tell you is that, one of the most underreported things out there is this caravan actually is breaking international law. Because once they got into Mexico, Mexico offered them asylum there, and they said, no, you can't asylum shop. You can't go from country to country until you find the one you want. So they're breaking international law with the stated goal of coming to this country illegally. Also, one of the things that no one knows is we basically apprehend about 100% of the people who come into this country illegally. The problem is the laws prevent us from sending them home. You'll remember back in the 2000s, there was a huge massive migration from Mexico. Well, our deal with Mexico is such that we can deport those individuals within a few hours of reaching our borders. It's not the case with Central America. When they come in here, we have to let them in, and then we just release them into the American communities across this country with little or no documentation, with a promise, quote unquote, for them to return to a court date later on. That never happens 80% of the time, and another 80% number I think should be known. The instances of credible fear claims from people coming seeking asylum from a danger from their own home country has gone up 1,700% in the last 8 years. That's because the drug cartels, the child smugglers, the human traffickers, they know the rules of this country. They know the way around those rules. They're telling them and coaching them, this is how you break the system. So when they get here, of the 1,700% increase, 80% of those who claim credible fear, once they go in front of an immigration judge, it's proven to be incorrect and false, and they still get released into the country. It is a dangerous situation. We have to stop it. Obviously, this is a congressional fix ultimately, but the president is looking at executive action to try and stop the problem right here from the White House.
Right. So would that executive action include a directive to border security or our military, whoever's guarding the border at that time, to not allowed to come into our nation anybody who had already been offered asylum in Mexico? Because it's my understanding that at least 4,000 or 5,000 of the 14,000 total migrants were offered asylum in Mexico. It's a pretty large number that were offered asylum and refused it.
It is, and again, that's breaking international law. I don't want to get ahead of what the president would or wouldn't do. We're having some conversations within the White House to try and figure out exactly what we can do as they head this way and try to break our laws. And we haven't made a decision yet, but there are lots of options on the table. We know that the Democrats won't come to the table to help us fix this problem. We've seen that now for the better part of 2 years. They're ignoring it going into the midterms because they don't want to touch what's going on down the border. But this president is standing up, even in a tumultuous time politically, to say this cannot happen. He wants to protect the American people. He'll settle for no less.